There is a third bank called Idbi Bank, which is categorized under other public sector bank. What is this Idbi Bank? The government started a bank called Industrial Development Bank of India by Reserve Bank of India subscribing more than 500 crores to its capital, with a huge capital, exclusively for the purpose of giving term loans for industries. Huge industries had to be started. Those industries required huge term loan, which commercial banks were not willing to give, because commercial banks are players in the medium term and short term market. They did not want to play in the long term market, and therefore they wanted a bank which will give term loans, long term loans to industries, to huge industries. Therefore a bank was brought into existence called Industrial Development Bank of India in the year 1964. Then came 1990. In 1990, the era of Indira Gandhi was over. Then came 1990, Prime Minister Narasimha Rao came. And during that period, India embarked upon LPG, liberalization, privatization and globalization, and no more nationalization was the agenda. And therefore, new licenses were given. Therefore, this IDBI, Industrial Development Bank of India, converted itself into a bank called They started a bank called IDBI Bank. And since all the shares are held by Government of India, this is included under other public sector, because it is not a nationalized bank. It does not belong to State Bank of India group. Therefore, this category is other public sector bank. Then there is one more bank under other public sector bank, that is Bharatiya Mahila Bank. Bharatiya Mahila Bank has the unique distinction of being a bank that was started by a budgetary speech. In a budget speech, Mr. P. Chidambaram announced starting off a Bharatiya Mahila Bank because he wanted to give more representation to women. He wanted a major share of loans to be given to women, and therefore for exclusive focus for the welfare of women, he proposed a new bank, and that bank came into existence on 19th November 2013 on the occasion of the 96th birth anniversary of former Prime Minister of India, Indira Gandhi. This is the third bank in the world to be a bank exclusively for women. But the sad story today is that this bank is going to be merged with the State Bank of India. So let us have little recap of what is a public sector bank, what are the various subcategories under it. Public sector bank, first, more than 50% shares are held by Government of India, not Reserve Bank of India, Government of India. Then the first public sector bank is State Bank of India and its group, 1956 Act and 1957 starting of State Bank of India. 12 years over, 1969, Madam Prime Minister Indira Gandhi in July 1969 by midnight an ordinance, she nationalized 14 banks, and again in 1980 the second batch of 6 banks were nationalized. So we have State Bank of India group, then second is nationalized bank, and the third is other public sector banks. The third category is other public sector bank. Under other public sector banks there are 2 banks. One is IDBI Bank and the other is Bharatiya Mahila Bank. Now I was taking class for some of the IDBI people who were writing for IDBI Bank exam. I told them they will ask IDBI Bank is classified under what category. So I told them, you please see it is other public sector. Don't write simply nationalized bank or some other thing wrongly. And they asked the same question. So the students were very happy and they told me that they got a good mark in that because they listened to my words. Now there is one more question, which is a very interesting question, and it is also a tricky question. Is State Bank of India a nationalized bank? This question is, I have faced this question from several students who have heard my classes. Is State Bank of India a nationalized bank? For that, we have to understand what is nationalization. Nationalization means taking over 100% of the assets and liabilities. If in that sense you are going to look at State Bank of India, State Bank of India is also a nationalized bank, but there is a small correction here. State Bank of India, even at that time, had a very small percentage of private sector shareholders. Because the State Bank of India has a history of 1935 onwards, Imperial Bank of India. So, I have seen State Bank of India shares of private sector, people holding State Bank of India shares. So, even at that point of time, when the government took over, there was a small group of people who were holding shares of State Bank of India. Therefore, it was not 100% owned. When they brought it under an act, only about 98 or 99% of the shares approximately were taken over and were under the control of government. Moreover, nationalization happened after 12 years when 100% of the shares were taken over by the government by a separate ordinance, which later on was substituted by an act. Therefore, State Bank of India has been, in the abundance of their wisdom, Reserve Bank of India itself has classified public sector banks into three categories. One is the State Bank of India group, and the other is nationalized bank. Therefore, State Bank of India is not a nationalized bank. Even though more than 50% of its shares are held by Government of India, is State Bank a nationalized bank? The answer is no. Because even Reserve Bank of India, to whom we always refer to as our godfather for any kind of explanation, they themselves have classified State Bank under State Bank group. And then only these 19 banks are classified under nationalized bank group. And then Idbi Bank, even though the shares 100% was owned by Government of India, the Idbi Bank is classified under other public sector along with the Bharatiya Mahila Bank.